Hello everybody, it's JB here, and this is a very important video that I'm making today because this is my reaction to the very good news from my point of view as a Burnley fan, that Scott Parker has now been sacked as manager of Burnley. 4 wins from 34 and 2 very disappointing cup defeats at home to League One opposition has finally forced pace his hand. Plus we've been relegated as well, hence why I sort of left doing a reaction to the relegation video, because I had until now, because I had a feeling Scott Parker may well go in the aftermath. He has. So Parker was sacked. 4 wins, as I said, from 34 games, culminating in relegation. We've got a grand total of just 20 points, which obviously was never going to be enough to keep us in the division. Anyway, so he's gone. So for the last 4 games, starting at least tomorrow night, we've got Mike Jackson coming in to take over proceedings. I think that's a very good move, because it gives the owners, like they did when we sacked Dyche a few years ago, that option to bring in the right man for the job. Now, the favourite, before I get into the next manager, I want to just touch on Parker's reign, especially this season, because it's not been good enough. As I said, 4 wins from 34. It's just not been good enough. I mean, there's a lot of forces at work. Why? I mean, the football. Listen, he got us up last year, so he got credit in the bank. Football wasn't great. We were keeping clean sheets. We drew lots of games 0-0, which didn't win us the title. Would it have made much difference if we'd have won the title? Probably not, because you know we got the main aim was promotion. When we did that, we got 100 points, so you can't be too critical. But the Premier League was always going to be the acid test, considering that he got Fulham up and he got Bournemouth up before, but failed miserably at both those clubs. So I was hoping and praying it'd be third time lucky, and I gave him 8 games grace because of the fixtures. Now we had a tough fixture list to start with. The first 7 or 8 games were against the so-called Big Six. I mean, if you include Tottenham in that bracket, because they could go down with us at the end of the season, and that would be absolutely hilarious. But we're not here to talk about Tottenham, we're here to talk about Burnley. And so let's look at this logically. I mean, I was quite, because he got us up, I thought, well, okay, let's give him 7 or 8 games. Let's give him until at least December to see if we can get at least 15, 16 points at that point, and then reevaluate it. That's what I was hoping for. Now, we had winnable games in that third run. We lost all the other games against the bigger teams. I expected that, which is fine. We had some really shabby VAR decisions go against us, especially at Manchester United and against Liverpool. Again, you can't blame Parker for any of that. Well, we were naive in certain aspects, and we could have taken points. The only team that we did get fresh by was Manchester City at the Etihad. Mind you, it doesn't matter who was in charge, we've still been beaten. I think Company beat us 6-0 in a cup when we were managed by Company. City still beat us 6-0 in a cup game once, so you know, that's fine. I can live with that. But it was always going to be the games with the mid-table teams. So we'd already beaten Leeds at home when we beat Sunderland. Should have beat Forest, but we got a draw, and we beat Wolves. So we're okay. You know, we had points on the road. So I'm thinking we're going into good games, winnable games against the Newcastles, the Palaces, the Brentfords, the Fulhams of this world. If we can take points from all those teams, Everton as well, all those middle of the road teams, you know, if we can take points there, keep a steady, going, keep a steady swing going, we'll be okay. And for whatever reason, we just didn't do it. First of all, this 3 at the back lark, Parker just didn't know when to do. He hadn't got a bloody clue. So he tried playing 3 at the back. It was suicide. You know, losing games like that. There was other mitigating circumstances. Players that are just out of form or just not good enough, like Lyle Foster. How many goals has he got in 3 years for us? 13. Sums it up, doesn't it? 13 goals in 3 years. You could not credit that. Again, you just look at the team and you're thinking, what are we doing? What are we actually doing? And it's like, are we actually trying to win games of football, or are we just sitting on our asses doing nothing? Hartman against, was it Fulham? What was he doing? You know, bombing forward, and then he just fails to track back on Fulham's goal, which cost us the match. You know, we had, you know, he didn't play the best players. Zian Fleming is our top scorer, and he's not an out-and-out striker, and he's got nearly 10 goals this season. And you've got Lyle Foster and Broja, who cost something like 25 million quid from Chelsea, and he hasn't scored. I think he scored 1 goal, and that was in a draw against Bournemouth, a game really we should have lost. The football's been turgid. The midfield, you know, I had great hopes for Florentino, I had great hopes for Big Ledog and Chukwu, bought for decent money from both respectively. I really thought they'd do better than what they've done. I think Parker, the problem with Parker is he's tried to be too cautious, and that's what's angered a lot of supporters. And then when we've been thumped like 3-1 or something like that, he talks about fine margins, and I mean, this is when we're thumped, not beaten, not lost, or we've been edged out in a 5-goal thriller. When we've been thumped 3 or 4-1 like we were at Forest last week, or 2 weeks ago, right? When we were thumped at Forest, it was like going on about fine margins every other week. It's okay when we've lost 3-2 and we've had a VAR go against us. Brentford, a game we should have won, but we didn't, at Turf Moor. You know, handball, was it heck? You know, VAR put pay to that one. But overall, we can't blame the refs, we can't blame VAR, we've got to blame Parker's man management. You can't. The only game we've won in 2016, 2026, I'm going back 10 years. The only game we've won this calendar year in the league was against Palace, and we had to come from 2-0 down to win that one. And then in the next game against Bournemouth, Brentford, that I've just touched on now. We went 3-0 down. Was it 2-0, 3-0? I can't remember. 3-0 down, that's it. And we got back to, how we got back to 3-3, I'll never know. And then we go and lose it. It's, you know, if you take out the emotion of the VAR, we still blew it for ourselves. And it's things like that. We needed to make Turf Moor a fortress. And in the first couple of home games, we tried, you know, against the teams that we were expected to win. We did. Sunderland and Leeds. You know, you think, okay, that's fine. But after that, we've just gone right off the boil, and that's down to Parker. You know, when we're on top in games, like we're winning 1-0 against certain teams in games, and he thinks, right, let's not go for the jugular, let's not bother going for a second, let's hold on to what we've got. You don't do that. You go and get that second goal, and you get that insurance policy. Then you defend it 2-0. Or 3-0 or whatever. Just get at least 2 goals ahead, and then start to think about being defensive minded. And Parker just didn't do that at all. He was naive and cowardice. But some of the players have got to take responsibility. I mean, sorry, but what is he kept giving chances to Lyle Foster. Now I know I keep bringing on about Lyle Foster, but he's an imposter. The clue's in the bloody nickname I've got for him, because he can't score. He's got 1 goal all season. Broja, another one. 1 goal all season. Twanzebe, relegated with Ipswich, hasn't done enough for me at the back this season. Esteve, really bad. I expected better from Esteve, because I thought he was going to be a really good player for us. Key player, and he's failed us this season. You know, I can see why Martin Zabraka was bought on the cheap. Yes, there's other conflicting factors, that Josh Cullen, our inspirational captain, got injured and he got an ACL, and that was disappointing. That hasn't helped. I'm not trying to use that as an excuse for why things have gone wrong. Would Cullen have made much of a difference? It's hard to say. It's debatable whether he would or not. Let's put it that way. But Parker, you know, Parker, there was enough quality we thought out there, even with Josh coming out. There was enough quality there for Burnley to really get some really positive points from those games, and they just didn't. And it was just, you know, it's just not been good enough. And you know, Parker needs to wake up, smell the Nescafe. He needed to wake up and smell the Nescafe. And then obviously when the results aren't going their way, and then when you add on the cup catastrophes at home to Cardiff, and then in the FA in the League Cup, and then we play Mansfield and fail to sort of like respect the opposition and get beat, it just felt really hollow indeed. And it's just, you know, we should have sacked him after the Brentford performance. We gave away some really crap goals there. Kyle Walker, he's past his best. I don't think there's any argument about that. There's just so much that is wrong with the football club at the moment. Then you've got Alan Pace corners, bans 3-year-olds with temper tantrums. The whole thing is just combinated. Not once though, during his press conferences or his post-match presses, has Parker come out and apologised to the supporters. The football that's been served up has not been entertaining. It's been turgid, it's been horrible, it's been, you know, very dull and boring and cautious. You know, I can. When companies took us down a couple of years ago and then went off to Bayern Munich, I could understand why Bayern Munich took him on, because he had something going there. But you know, with Bayern Munich, he had that better quality and calibre of a player. Whereas, well, unfortunately, we've got Scott Parker, who's, listen, don't get me wrong, he's probably a nice guy in real life, outside the management and all that sort of shit, but as a manager he's just not good enough, and he can take his bloody stupid cardigans with him as well. And then there's the AI scouts. That was an expensive white elephant. Why are you signing players based on artificial intelligence? Go and scout them yourself. That's what Sean Dyche had to do. That's what Owen Coyle and Steve Cottrell and Eddie Howe had to do when they were managers there. You scout your own players and you mould your own team. I hate that when you know, John Hill as a first team coach, he's never even played a fucking first team game in his career. He's a data analyst. Why is he the first team coach? The whole thing has been a complete bizarre season. You know, it's not been good enough. Anyway, Parker's gone. That's it now. So Mark Jackson now takes over for the last 4 games. You know, let's hope we get some positive results in the last 4 games. We know the fate is sealed. We know we're relegated. You know, I accepted relegation as recent as December, as far back as December, because we weren't going to get diddly squat. So for next season, the manager odds, I'll pick a few out. Steven Gerrard's the 2-1 on favourite. This is according to TalkSport. Steven Gerrard apparently has been in talks with us. How true that is, I can't honestly say. So Steven Gerrard won the Scottish Premiership with Rangers. Few people are not so sure about him. Yeah, he had a bad spell at Villa, but maybe that wasn't the right fit. There are certain teams, you know, Sean Dyche didn't have a good time at Watford and got sacked, and he came to Burnley, no money, sold Charlie Austin, and we got second place and we got into the Premiership. So some clubs it's not a good fit, other clubs it could be seamless. Maybe Gerrard's the right man, because think about it, where Burnley are, 30 miles from Liverpool, so he could, you know, so he's not far from his hometown. And then you've got other factors to take into account. You know, you can see his family and everything else. I honestly think he could do a job for us. I really do, and I think he could keep us up. I think he'll bring his own team in. I think if he brings Michael Beale in, I think they'll do well. I hope and pray that he ditches, the first thing that he does do is ditch the AI scouts and gets a good scouting network, a good quality scouting network in that can source the best talent that we can buy so we can get the best chance of winning the title next season in the Championship. It might be a tall order really to win the title, with Spurs possibly going down. Might have a better chance if West Ham go, to be honest with you, but you know, we'll see what happens once the Premier League's finished, and then we can sort of like go over it now. But we've got to minimum get in the top 2. It's going to be tricky. Playoffs at the very, very least. Anything outside the top 6 won't be considered good enough. Other candidates: Craig Bellamy, Wales manager, unproven as a number 1 at club level, I think would be a gamble. Thomas Frank is an interesting one at 10-1. Did wonders with Brentford. Obviously didn't do as well with Tottenham as he would have liked. Ralph Rusenhüttel, former Southampton, 14s. That's an interesting one. Sean Dyche, 16-1. Now, if we can't get Steven Gerrard, I'd love us to get Sean Dyche back, and I'll tell you for why. I know he's 16-1 chance to land to get the job back, but he's got unfinished business. The way he was sacked by the owners at the time, by Pace and his cronies, was wrong. They were trying to, you know, there was disagreements. Now, it would be nice if Payson could bury the hatchet with Dyche, get him back, because he knows what it takes to win the Championship. You know, and I want him, you know, I want the next Burnley manager to be the manager, not a head coach, not a first team coach or whatever it is, they stupidly call it now. The manager. Not some random guy, but, you know, but, yeah, so for me, if not Gerrard, definitely Dyche, because he's got the experience, and we know he knows the club inside out, and he knows, and he'll bring an element of discipline. He'll get rid of the deadwood. I think Steven Gerrard will get rid of some deadwood as well. I'll be very, very surprised if they didn't get rid of Fire Foster. There'd be something very, very wrong, because people like Foster, Twanzebe, they're not good enough. Fire Foster's proven in the Championship he's not good enough. You know, I'd sell him at a loss to League One. Get him to a League One side, because in the Championship he ain't going to push up any daisies. He scored 2 goals in the last time we were in the Championship. He ain't good enough. You know, he scores more for South Africa than he does for Burnley, which tells you everything you need to know. But I think Dyche would be good. You know, let's just see what happens over the summer. I'm sure Pace and the board will come to the right one, but I've got a funny feeling it'll be Steven Gerrard, because Pace likes a name, company, Parker. Steven Gerrard does make a lot of sense for what Pace wants. But if Sean Dyche came back, I'd be mad up, because at least we'd have that strong jaw back, and Sean Dyche would be everything that Burnley Football Club has stood for the last sort of 15 years. Hearts, minds, lungs, that was his words. You know, we have to get back to that sort of strong jaw mentality. If we don't, then it's going to be another long haul next season. But one's hoping that if we can get the right manager in, whether it's Gerrard, Dyche or Frank or whoever, let's just make sure that we can let's just give them the tools necessary, give them a full scouting network, a proper scouting network, not artificial intelligence, a full scouting network that we can sort of look towards for next season. Because, you know, the AI hasn't worked. It clearly hasn't worked. We just bought every other team, we bought every other reject of a Christmas card off this AI. I mean, AI doesn't work. You can go with XGs and whatever. I'm not interested in all that. I want to see a winning team. I couldn't give a toss about stats and goals, expected shitty goals or whatever. I just want my team back. I just want Burnley Football Club as I've supported it for the last 25, 30 years. You know what I mean? Pace to dump all this Americanized music, all this razzmatazz. That would be great for next season. Let's get back to Burnley being Burnley, you know what I mean? The underdog that achieves, like we have done for the last sort of 15 years or more. Why not come back to that? Anyway, thanks very much. That's my opinion of Scott Parker and who the next manager might be. Hit a like. Let me know who you think might be the next Burnley manager in the comments below, and tell me the reasons as to why. But I'm pleased that Parker's gone. It's been a long time overdue, 5 months too late, but he's gone. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you later.